My son looked me in the eyes and quietly said, "Dad, Sarah thinks it would be better if you don't come." I smiled. "To your anniversary?" He nodded. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Then I said the only thing I could. "Tell her I hope the evening is beautiful." His lips trembled. "You aren't angry?" I shook my head. "No." He looked relieved. I wish he hadn't. Because sometimes relief is what keeps people from realizing how much they've hurt you. 3 weeks later, that same son was standing outside my hospital room. The doctor had just handed him an envelope. Inside was something I had spent 2 years making sure he would never see. By the time he finished reading it, he couldn't even look at me. And for the first time since he was a little boy, he whispered, "I don't deserve to call you Dad." 3 weeks earlier, people often ask me what retirement is like. Most imagine fishing, traveling, sleeping late. The truth is much quieter. Retirement is making breakfast for one. It's hearing the mail arrive and secretly hoping someone remembered your birthday. It's talking to the neighbor's dog because he's the only one who visits every afternoon. My name is Jack. I'm 68 years old. My wife Helen died 5 years ago. Every morning, I still make 2 cups of coffee. The second cup sits beside her picture until it gets cold. Some habits aren't habits. They're promises. Daniel used to stop by every Sunday after church. He'd bring Emma and Noah. Emma always raced to the backyard swing. Noah followed me into the garage, convinced every toolbox contained buried treasure. Those Sundays kept this old house alive. Then little things began changing. One Sunday became every other Sunday. Then once a month. Then birthdays became phone calls. Phone calls became text messages. Eventually, even the texts grew shorter. "Busy today. Maybe next week." "Sorry, Dad." I never argued. Young families have busy lives. That's what I kept telling myself. That's what I kept telling myself. Then one afternoon, I was buying tomatoes at the grocery store when I heard someone shout, "Mr. Carter!" I turned around. It was Noah's third-grade teacher. She smiled. "I wanted to thank you." "For what?" She looked surprised. "For coming to career day." I blinked. I wasn't there. Her smile faded. "Oh, I thought..." She stopped herself. It's probably nothing. But it wasn't nothing. Something inside me became very quiet. That evening, I called Daniel. "Career day?" He hesitated. "Oh, it got canceled." "I see." I didn't mention his teacher. I simply wished him a good night. After we hung up, I looked at Helen's picture. She always said, "When people start hiding little truths, they're usually protecting a much bigger one." I hoped she was wrong. A few days later, Emma called me. Not on Daniel's phone. On an old tablet she'd gotten for Christmas. "Grandpa?" "Hi, sweetheart. I have a question." "Go ahead." "Did you stop liking school?" I laughed. "I've been out of school for 50 years. I know. But Mom says that's why you don't come anymore." The smile disappeared from my face. "I never said that." She frowned. I knew it. Before I could ask another question, another voice called her name. Emma quickly whispered, "I have to go." Then the screen went black. I stared at the blank display for a long time. Children rarely invent stories. They repeat them. That night, I couldn't sleep. The next morning, instead of sitting at home, I walked into the community center downtown. A handwritten sign on the door read, "Volunteers needed." I had no reason to go inside, so I did. Sometimes the best decisions begin that way. The woman at the front desk smiled. "You here to help?" "I suppose I am. My name's Ruth. Jack." She handed me an apron. "Can you cook?" "Poorly." She laughed. "Perfect. We're short on dishwashers." For the first time in months, someone needed me. Not because I was family. Not because they had to. Simply because I showed up. I stayed 3 hours. Then 4 the next day. By the end of the week, I knew everyone's name. An elderly veteran named Frank. A widow named Maria. a shy college student named Emily who volunteered every Thursday after work. Life slowly became bigger than my empty house. One Thursday, Emily walked into the kitchen looking upset. "You okay?" I asked. She nodded too quickly. "My boss is having a rough week." "What happened?" She sighed. "His marriage is falling apart." "I'm sorry to hear that. He keeps blaming himself. He says he ignored the people who loved him because he was trying to keep everyone else happy." Something about those words felt familiar. Then Emily smiled sadly. "You'd probably like him. He talks about his dad all the time." I dried my hands on a towel. "What's his name?" She answered without thinking. "Daniel Carter." The towel slipped from my hand. Emily looked at me. "You know him?" I smiled. "He's my son." The color drained from her face. "Oh, I didn't know." Neither of us spoke. Then she quietly said something that made my heart stop. "He keeps an old picture of you and your wife in his desk drawer. He looks at it almost every day. But," she hesitated, "I've never seen anyone look so guilty." I didn't know what that guilt meant. Not yet. But I was about to find out. Because 2 days later, my phone rang. It was Daniel. And before he could say hello, I heard him crying. I didn't say anything. Sometimes people don't need advice. They just need someone who won't hang up. For nearly 20 seconds, all I heard was Daniel trying to catch his breath. Finally, he whispered, "Dad? Yeah? Can I come over?" "Of course. I'm not coming because I need a place to stay." "I know. I'm coming because I don't know where else to go. My door's open. It always has been." He arrived 30 minutes later. He looked older. Not because of wrinkles. Because guilt has a way of aging a person overnight. He sat across from me in the kitchen, staring at the coffee cup I'd placed in front of him. After a long silence, he finally spoke. "Sarah moved out." I nodded slowly. "I'm sorry." He looked surprised. "You are?" "I don't celebrate broken marriages." He rubbed his eyes. "I spent years trying to keep everyone happy. I ended up hurting the only person who never asked me for anything." I let him speak. He had carried these words long enough. "I need to tell you something." I nodded. "Go ahead. You remember Noah's surgery 3 years ago?" Of course I did. Daniel had told me it was covered by insurance. It wasn't. I looked at him. "What do you mean?" "The insurance denied part of it. We couldn't pay the hospital. I almost lost the house." I frowned. "You never told me." I was embarrassed. He swallowed hard. Then, one morning, the hospital called. They said the bill had been paid. I thought it was some charity. He looked down at his hands. It wasn't. Before I could answer, he reached into his coat pocket and placed an envelope on the table. "I went to the hospital yesterday. I asked who paid. They weren't supposed to tell me, but the administrator remembered your name." I closed my eyes. "So, he knew." "I sold my fishing boat," I said quietly, "and my old pickup. You loved that truck. I loved my grandson more." His shoulders began to shake. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because if I had, you would have spent years trying to pay me back. I wasn't making a loan. I was protecting my family." He covered his face. "I've spent 2 years believing you stopped caring. And all that time, you were carrying us." I smiled. "That's what fathers do." He couldn't look at me. "I don't deserve this." "No, you deserve another chance." The next morning, Daniel asked if I would come somewhere with him. We drove across town to the community center where I volunteered. As soon as we walked in, Ruth smiled. "Jack." Then she noticed Daniel. "So this is the famous son." Daniel looked confused. "Famous?" Ruth laughed. "Your father talks about you every week." He turned toward me. "You talk about me?" "Of course. I always thought—" He stopped. "You thought I complained." He nodded. Ruth smiled softly. "The only thing your father ever says is, 'I hope my son is doing all right.'" Daniel looked away. Emily walked in, carrying a box of canned food. When she saw us together, she smiled. "I'm glad you came." Daniel quietly asked, "You knew?" She nodded. "I figured it out. Why didn't you tell me?" "Because some conversations belong inside a family." For the first time in years, I saw my son smile. A real smile. Not because life was perfect, because hope had finally found him. Over the next few months, something changed. Not overnight. Not all at once. One Sunday, Daniel knocked on my door with a toolbox. "I noticed your porch step is loose." The next week, he mowed my lawn before I even woke up. The week after that, he brought Emma and Noah over, just to make pancakes. Slowly, he stopped saying, "I'm sorry," and started asking, "What do you need today?" That's when I knew he had truly changed. One cold November morning, I collapsed while raking leaves. It wasn't serious. Just exhaustion and a heart that reminded me I wasn't 30 anymore. When I woke up in the hospital, Daniel was asleep in the chair beside my bed. His hand was still resting on the blanket, as if he had been making sure I was really there. Emma and Noah were curled up together on the couch. There was an untouched cup of coffee on the windowsill. 2 cups, just like I used to make for Helen. The nurse smiled. "They've barely left your room." Later that afternoon, Daniel handed me a folded piece of paper. I found this in Mom's Bible. It wasn't addressed to me. It simply read, "For whichever one of my boys needs this more." I unfolded it carefully. Helen's handwriting hadn't changed. Love isn't measured by how loudly someone says "I'm sorry." It's measured by what they quietly choose to do after the apology. One day, one of you will need forgiveness. The other will have to decide whether love is bigger than disappointment. I hope, when that day comes, you both choose each other. By the time I finished reading, neither of us could hold back the tears. Daniel stood beside my bed. "I'm done missing Sundays." I smiled. "So am I." Spring arrived a few months later. The old maple tree in the backyard began growing new leaves. Emma ran outside with Noah, laughing as they chased the little seed pods through the grass. Daniel stood beside me on the porch. "Dad? Yeah? Do you still leave the porch light on every night?" "I do," he smiled. "Why?" I looked toward the driveway where my family was waiting. Then I answered with the same quiet truth that had carried me through the hardest years of my life. Because people don't always lose their way in the daytime. They usually lose it in the dark. And everyone deserves to know. There's still a light waiting for them. Daniel reached over and hugged me. Not because he felt guilty anymore, but because he was home. Sometimes people think revenge is watching someone regret what they did to you. I learned something different. The greatest revenge is becoming the safe place they never deserved, until they finally learned how to deserve it. That night, before everyone left, Emma ran back to the front door. "Grandpa." "Yes, sweetheart?" She grinned. "Don't turn the porch light off." I smiled. I wasn't planning to, because some lights aren't meant to help people find a house. They're meant to help people find their way back to the people who never stopped loving them. And as I watched my son drive away with his children laughing in the back seat, I realized something Helen had known all along. A father's greatest victory isn't raising a perfect son. It's leaving the door open long enough for him to become one.